Welcome to the second episode of the Too Much Curb podcast, your casual podcast for everything Formula One related. I'm Mike Santos. I am your host. And if you are coming back, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I did hear from some people saying that they were checking out the podcast, which I absolutely appreciate. I learned a lot from the first episode. Really just hope to get better as time goes on and I continue to learn and try to make this enjoyable as it is for you, as it is for me. I do have a good time doing this. So before I get into anything, I wanted to go over the news from the past week. And then after that, I wanted to go through each team and what is going on with them and what do I think that we'll be expecting for the upcoming year. So for the past week, a lot of liveries got released, some good, some bad, some ugly. I wanted to start off with the Aston Martin one. They definitely had the most hype out of anybody. And I think a part of that is because there's such a massive British audience on TV, and bringing in a Formula One team that is appropriating the British racing green is very exciting. That's one of my favorite racing colors as well. As much as I like the pink, and I think that this they might be being hyped a little bit too much, personally, but I'm excited about it. So I think it personally met expectations. Absolutely love the green. I think in my team in Formula One, in the F1 game, I also have a British racing green. I do love that color, and I'm glad to see it back on the grid. The only thing I'm not a massive fan of is the pink. It looks good on the car. It doesn't look necessarily super great on the uniforms. And on the uniforms especially, it kind of looks super tacked on. And I think there's a reason for that, because what I've been hearing is that BWT, as you know, was a sponsor for Racing Point, which of course got changed to Aston Martin this year. They have that pink color, that bubblegum pink that has been a mainstay in a lot of motorsport, actually, not just F1 or F2, but I've been seeing it a lot. So the pink is because of that. Because BWT was going back and forth with Aston Martin as far as them sponsoring. That's why they were going back and forth so much, because they're usually like a main sponsor, the title sponsor for a team. And it's cognizant for Aston Martin this time. And that green and pink, I mentioned on the last episode, I didn't know how that was going to work. It doesn't look too bad, but the lime green that people were saying that it was going to be before, it looks so much better. There's some, I don't know if they're Photoshop pictures or like leaked pictures, but the lime green is something that they appropriated a lot in their other liveries around other motorsport like GTE and whatnot. Yeah, it looks really good. The pink, not bad though. It's more of a magenta, I guess I should say. It's not so much pink. There are a couple pictures that I've got a picture I'm looking at in front of me that has Seb, and like his brim has the lime green, and he has another picture from what looks like the same photo shoot, and I think they photoshopped the brim of his hat to be pink. So I'm sure that's pretty interesting, them going back and forth with, is BWT actually going to be here? Nonetheless, they're there now. The livery looks great. It looks fantastic overall. It's one of my favorites that were revealed. On the uniform, it's the shoulders that do it. Not a big fan of that. I wish they put it somewhere else. It seems like tacked on. I think that the lime green would have looked a lot better. Along with the Aston Martin livery reveal, because we're talking about the green Aston Martin here, let's talk about we're talking about the green Mercedes. Let's talk about the black Mercedes, the actual Mercedes. I'm glad they stuck with the black. I am a big fan of the black. I know that they're the silver arrows, but the black is so slick. But it doesn't seem to look as striking as last year, probably because it's not new, and we all knew it was coming back. The AMG in the back, it's probably my least favorite part. The Mercedes stars work so much better, the design there. The AMG looks like it's convoluted and confusing, like it's almost a word cloud, while the Mercedes stars made it look like it was more of a pattern. That white gradient that they put there by the numbers, it's a big mess. You know, with the AMG, the white gradient, and then that weird font that they use for the numbers. It really throws off the design because everything else is so clean looking, and then there's just that part in the back. I don't know what they were doing back there. I do like the Helvetica numbers from like last year. I think they stand out very well. The red 4477, no. Also the Ineos, I don't know if it got redder or bigger, but it seems to really stand out this year. The red really throws off the rest of the design. The reason I don't really know is because I have seen pictures where it seems a lot more pronounced than it was last year, and then I look at other pictures and it looks very similar to 2020's. But overall, it's not bad. Could be better. It's just mostly that back part that is a bit of a mess. The Alpine livery reveal. That's my favorite livery so far. I love the blue. It looks fantastic. There was not much to comment on the car. It's exactly what I expected, pretty much. There's a lot of people who were drawing up based on other cars that they sponsor in different series, and actually a couple of their promotional pictures or promotional cars also had a very similar design to it. But nonetheless, it doesn't look just good in the promotional shots, it looks great on track as well. I'm a huge fan of the blue. I think that's my favorite one. I'm glad to see that the livery, or that the grid, has so many specific distinctive liveries, that all the branding I think is really on point with the cars this year. But that's being said, let's talk about the Haas livery. That is probably the biggest disappointment I've ever seen, and I was sitting here expecting to see Rich Energy was coming back, and I thought that was going to be a sword deal, but at least we get black and gold. But wow, this is so much worse. America's F1 team, plagued with just bad luck and mismanagement, takes a Russian oligarch's money and is draped in a Russian flag. It's not even that the livery is that bad, necessarily. On the day of, though, I saw about half a dozen recolors, and they all look better. There was a German one, if they decided to do one after Mick Schumacher with a black, gold, and red. A Castrol one with a classic red, green, and white. And a Trans Rights one, which was very interesting. It was like a cotton candy white, blue, and pink. Sorry, it's not cotton candy white. It's cotton candy pink. And I saw it was an American Stars one that somebody just made out of spite, just from so angry at seeing the Russian one. I think that it's the idea that behind it that makes it so much worse. It's not so much the livery, even though it is a very boring livery. I did just talk about, like last episode, that there's too much white on the grid, and Haas really doubled down on that. It's just incredibly disappointing. They could have gone any other direction, and I probably would have been at least meh about it, but I'm just disappointed. Apparently they cleared this deal with the FIA because there is a regulation out there that the Russian flag may not be flown at events, and Mazepin can't drive under the Russian flag either. So this is an interesting workaround, and I'm pretty surprised that the FIA approved this. It's inevitable, I think we all know it, that the Mazepins are going to purchase this team. There's only 2 sponsors in the car. Haas is down pretty bad. You can tell that the deal with Nikita Mazepin's father, Dmitry, trying to buy Racing Point and getting beat out by Stroll just goes to show he's definitely in the market to buy a team. I'm sure part of it is just, he just wants to own a F1 team. That's something that billionaires seem to be attracted to. And also, of course, buying a seat for his son. I just wish that they did this Russian flag thing after it was sold, or I don't know. At least Haas just goes full stars and stripes, like the guy who was upset about the Russian flag. But Racing Point being bought out by Stroll is one thing, and there was the controversy of Racing Point, which they definitely copied from Mercedes. But that being said, Lawrence Stroll seems to have a passion for motorsport, and Lance isn't about to lose a seat anytime soon, but he's still an incredibly talented driver. This Mazepin deal, it just seems icky. It just seems gross. It just kind of similar vibes to the Rich Energy, where the Rich Energy one, it seems kind of more like, okay, this is kind of shady, but the Russian oligarch one is just like, it's just, woof. Especially when you see how much of a trash person that Nikita has been in the past, and not just a controversy about what happened this off season with the groping incident, but just on track antics. I think he punched Callum Ilott in the face after, I don't know if it was after a practice or after a race, but he doesn't seem like a great guy. And the family just looks like a couple of supervillains, don't they? They just have that look about them. It's like it's almost like 80s propaganda, and something Ronald Reagan would be pretty happy about. But yeah, a lot of people, a lot of people were calling for Mazepin to actually lose his seat after the groping incident. And like, come on, we were, looking back, hindsight's 2020, but we were absolutely kidding ourselves that he was going to lose a seat or even get any punishment. Haas is obviously, Gene Haas isn't in this for longer than this year. I don't think. I think he's out the door. He doesn't want this team anymore. He'll let Nikita Mazepin drive for a year, then he'll fully sell the team off. It hasn't been a very successful venture for him, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we go over Haas later on this episode. All right, and moving on to Williams, they revealed their livery as well. It's pretty messy looking. I'm not sure what they're trying to do with this. I'm not sure if it's gonna be one of those deals where it grows on me. I do like the blue. I think the blue is a very nice color, but it looks like a F1 2020 My Team livery that I would play around with for a couple of minutes, not know what to do about it, and then give up and complain about how I wish there was different liveries in this game. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand where they're trying to go for this. It just looks like they have too much going on. Before I move on to the team previews, Kvyat was also announced as an Alpine backup driver. It was funny because I saw a picture of him wearing the Alpine shirt without a formal announcement, and I was like, okay, I must have missed that. Then right after that, I went on Twitter, and they had just posted a minute or so ago saying, it's not the only news, and all of the comments were Kvyat in his jersey, like, yeah, we know. I'm happy to see that he's not just sitting out the season like I initially thought he was. So I apologize to Daniel Kvyat. He's got his stuff put together. He's thinking forward. I think this will help him keep in conversations as far as keeping him in the forefront of other teams when it comes to considerations of getting seats next year, or maybe even just taking somebody's seat if need be. It worked out in his favor with Toro Rosso when he was with Ferrari. I know that he was a big help to them when they had him as their simulator driver. But I hope that Red Bull just leave this man alone. It would be, the third, fourth time that they'd bring him back to the team. Stop playing with this man's emotions. You keep him on the team every other year, and you're going to throw him back to the Wolves. It's kind of messed up, but good for him. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the team previews. I'm going to go ahead and go in order in the constructors' standings from last year. So, of course, first, we're going to talk about Mercedes. Mercedes obviously going to win the Constructors' Championship. I don't think there's a doubt in anybody who thinks logically, in anybody's minds. Lewis is going to win the Drivers' Championship. There aren't any big updates that I know of, and they're already the best car by a lot. Bottas is probably going to seize a couple of opportunities for a couple of wins, but ultimately fail to Lewis. The interesting thing about Mercedes is there is just 1 year in Lewis and Bottas's contracts. They both expire in 2022. I don't remember. I think both of them signed 1-year deals, actually, because Bottas signed the deal earlier in 2020, and Lewis did it in the off season. Now, as far as my personal thoughts, I do believe that Lewis will sign again for 2022. I do think he wants to at least check out the new regulations and see where everything is going before deciding to retire or not. Some people think that he's in it to win one more championship to beat Schumacher's record and then bounce out of here. But I haven't seen anything that would lead me to believe that. When someone like Lewis is on the grid, who has won everything that there is to win, who really knows where his headspace is? I think that he's expressed enough times that he wants more competition and racing for him to be a part of. And I think he's going to be a part of 2022 if that is a possibility. I think he in the background, I think he probably roots for Red Bull as much as Helmut Marko does, and really hope that they do one day just come true to their word and actually be up there to challenge Mercedes. Bottas, I do think it's his last year at Mercedes, and Russell will be taking over for him. Bottas is a fantastic number 2 driver. He's a great driver in general, but he doesn't have the world championship drive in him. He's solid. His racecraft isn't where it needs to be to win the championship. Mercedes don't necessarily need a championship caliber driver because they have Lewis. There's really nothing that having 2 championship caliber drivers will really get them that they haven't been getting already. It'll only cause problems. But Lewis is reaching the end of his career. They're going to want to put their chips at another driver to kind of ride in Lewis's footsteps as much as they can. I fully expect to see a Hamilton-Russell lineup in 22. If for some reason Lewis leaves in 2022, I'm not sure if they'll get rid of Bottas, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I don't think they would need a new driver, but just an experienced driver to be in that second seat to be alongside of Russell. So Red Bull, the biggest thing I'm interested with them is how Max and Checo lineup will work out. A lot of people think that Max is going to beat Checo pretty handedly, and I don't think that's invalid. But I want to give Checo some credit. He is a very great driver. I want to talk about a little bit about that cursed chalice that the second seat is. I don't think that Sergio Perez is going to fail in that second seat the way that Gasly or Albon did. The car is a bit squirrely and it's difficult to manage. Obviously, yes. But I don't think that Checo's going to have that same issue. He's a veteran and experienced driver. I believe that he can get it managed in the way that Albon and Gasly weren't able to. The car isn't the biggest issue to me. I think it's the environment. Red Bull, out of all of the teams, seems to be one of the most ridiculous work situations to be in, where they throw you into the wolves and bank on you being a generational talent. I mean, it worked out for Vettel, Daniel, Max, sure, but throwing new guys into this and immediately keeping up with Max is insane pressure. It's not even just from the team, it's just on all sides. It's just what they've come to expect out of Red Bull. So the press, the social media, it has you all under a lens at all times, comparing you to Max, who, like I said, is a generational talent. What I thought that Red Bull needed was a Bottas-esque number 2. So someone who will keep up with Max enough to make trouble for Mercedes, but not necessarily challenge Max in position for wins. So for the first half of the year, I really thought that man was going to be Nico Hülkenberg. He checked all the boxes for me for a solid number 2, a veteran driver who has shown talent, maturity, and capability for results in his Racing Point drives. Yes, he's never gotten a podium before. Like I said, I only started watching very recently. I don't think that he's a bad driver at all. A lot of people actually rate him very highly. I think that I don't know if it's a mental block that he has there. It's been so long that he's psyching himself out, or if he just has shit luck. Honestly, it's probably a little bit of both. I thought that was the person for that number 2 seat. The thing is with Checo, he is an incredibly aggressive driver. I would even say that there's been cases which would lead me to believe he's actually a bit dirty. There's a couple of times where I've seen Perez drive and I'm like, okay, well that doesn't seem good. I don't know. Bad taste in my mouth, especially the first half of the year. I was like, I don't really like this guy that much, but he's an incredibly solid driver still. He's just aggressive, like I said. He's not that Bottas number 2 mold. He's more of a number 1, and he'll do whatever it takes to be in that seat. However, that being said, the more the season went on, it became very obvious to me that if it came to either of these guys, Sergio Perez would be the stronger choice. He's coming off an incredibly great season, his maiden win, and he really outshone Lance in the last half of the season. He had some shit luck, yes, but I think he's shown that he's more than capable to hold his own. I think he deserves the Red Bull drive to try it out. And yeah, he at least deserves to be here. It was really sad when he won that one race and we were like, there's no way that he's not going to be in F1 next year. There wasn't many seats, but Racing Point kind of did him dirty with the way that they let him go. So I'm predicting some butting heads. Red Bull's going to fully back Max, obviously. That is their priority when it comes to the team. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Daniel left the team. He wanted to be a world championship. He wanted to be a world champion. Red Bull's sitting here saying, we want Max to be the youngest champion of all time. So obviously, when it came down to it, they're going to put him first or level. But I'm expecting to see something similar. He's on a 1-season contract. Like hell, this man is going to be holding back. Every time you see something with Sergio Perez, he's freaking hyped. He is so excited to be in this seat. He's like, Red Bull is a national drink of Mexico now. You know, he's like, I've been waiting my entire career for a moment like this. He is not going to hold back at all. And I'm fully expecting to see at least one Red Bull on Red Bull crash. Definitely. These are both similarly thinking drivers. Both of them are going to want that win, and I think that this is the team. I think this is the team that's going to have the biggest in-team rivalry. And after the season, we'll see what happens. It seems like Helmut is pretty keen on getting Yuki in that Red Bull seat. Either way, I think this Max Sergio lineup is going to be the only time we see it, just this year. So I want to move on to McLaren. McLaren is coming off a stellar third place season finish and is on the upward trajectory. They have obviously been investing for their future heavily, gathering sponsors like crazy. They're focusing on building the team's branding presence, things like the hiring of Andreas Seidel. They're making big moves. If I had to put my money on any team being the next contender, it would be McLaren. Obviously, the biggest changes that we're seeing in McLaren this season is the addition of Daniel Ricciardo, as well as switching to the Mercedes engine. Carlos Sainz is a fantastic driver, but Daniel is next here, definitely trade up. No bias, even though he's my favorite driver. But I think that he's definitely the guy that can help lead McLaren to being a race winning and hopefully one day championship winning team. And, like I said, that's what I personally hope for as a Danny fan, but I genuinely do believe that too. I think that he's said it a few times where that's one of the biggest reasons he wanted to go McLaren is he feels confident in them building this championship winning team. And I think that I think him and Lando are going to be a good pairing as drivers. Daniel can learn a lot from Daniel, and he's consistent enough to be a great number 2. A lot of people I don't think they are so much right now, but they were really overstating the whole meme team thing and, the banter and expecting them to be super jokey together because of their personalities. And don't get me wrong, they seem like they're pretty friendly to each other. They seem to be friends in some capacity, but they're not going to have something similar than Norris is or Sainz. And Norris and Sainz are. They might, but Norris and Sainz seem to be actual good friends. It's gonna be very competitive with these guys. I think people who are expecting the whole meme team thing they're gonna be sorely disappointed. I think that while I don't think that Daniel's gonna wipe the floor with him, but I think he's gonna beat him pretty comfortably. The biggest item that I'm worried about is the Mercedes update. It's an upgrade, but building the car differently around that is where it gets tricky. These F1 cars are very delicately built machines that, small changes can make big differences. And this is a big change that needs a ton of small changes with it. But they seem to be helpful. But they seem to be hopeful. That's comforting. I think that McLaren are in for another great year with more podiums. Hopefully they'll start winning in 2022. One or two would be nice in 2021, but Andreas Seidel, I think, said that they're not going to start winning until 2022, which I can accept. Which leads us to Aston Martin, probably the most hyped team for this year. I'd argue a little overhyped, but the addition of the British racing green, as well as having a fan favorite in Seb Vettel, it's an equation that's gonna turn keep this train going. I personally am expecting similar to last year. The car hasn't changed much. I think that if Vettel is in a good spot, then we should see great things from them. So that leads me on to what I think is the biggest thing to look out for here is what the hell is going on with Sebastian Vettel. Yes, Ferrari had a dreadful year last year, but he was even worse than that. Leclerc seemed to find some sort of balance, and he found some sort of way to still get podiums and still be somewhat competitive and really push that bad car past what it seemed to be capable of. But there are times that Sebastian was, he was by himself and he would spin out, and that could have to do with the balance of the car. But when you're comparing to your teammate who's not doing that, it's you gotta wonder. And I think that the Ferrari deal with last year, he found out that he wasn't going to be on the team at the beginning of the year. And I think that definitely put a rift between them and the team. At least on the radio, it seemed pretty bad. Like they were some sort of Sunday league amateur team, and it was an owner driver telling them how to work. And it just seemed insane to me how incompetent Ferrari seemed out of all the teams. And I don't know. Sebastian has kept a good relationship with them, but the whole reason he went to Ferrari is because of the massive respect they had for him, for Ferrari. And I think he still has a good relationship with them because, I'm sure he's friends with a lot of people there, and they seem to have left in the best terms they could possibly leave in for having such a rocky year. And I think that Sebastian is he's a pretty classy guy. He's not going to talk shit about Ferrari. I think that Sebastian will do better at Aston Martin. I do. I just don't know to what degree. He's going to beat out Lance. I don't think that's too much of a question. I think that's for sure. He's going to beat him out. Lance is very good. He's made a lot of improvements last year, but he's not that good. He just makes dumb decisions sometimes. I think he could have won Monza instead of Gasly. Something else that stands out to me is his horrible pass on Ricciardo during the Spielberg GP, where they both went off track. He pushed him off track and they almost crashed, which allowed last lap Lando to gain 2 more positions. But yeah, that was pretty dangerous. That was pretty boneheaded. I think that he'll continue to improve in his racecraft, and he did have awful luck last year. After his Monza podium, all the luck was off for him. It just really went downhill from there. And something that is interesting about Aston Martin is they are still the pink Mercedes. They are the green Mercedes now. And I think that with the hype train, people are not too friendly on that term anymore. But there's nothing that leads me to believe why they wouldn't be. But with Aston's future, they are the team that copied Mercedes. And they have upward momentum. I think they're right up there with McLaren on having the most upward momentum. But with the Tracing Point scandal, I question, do they have what it takes to continue to innovate to push forward in 2022? Yes, they're in a fantastic position for 2021. They still have the lookalike Mercedes, but once regulations change, are they going to push that forward when they don't have anybody to copy off of? And I'm not to say that they don't have great engineers. I'm sure that they do. Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. But yeah, we'll see where that ingenuity comes from. We'll see if they can. They have been gaining a ton of traction, a ton of sponsors. It was always the joke that Zach Brown does it again with the sponsors that were coming to McLaren. Now it's the same thing with Aston Martin. Every time you look, they've got a new sponsor on that car. So another team to watch, because I truly don't know what to expect, is Alpine. Fernando Alonso is an absolute legend, one of the best drivers of all time. But does he still have what it takes to be in Formula One? I personally think probably he does. Everything I see about Fernando is he has the utmost confidence in himself. Not a guy I'd hang out with probably, but he's definitely confident in himself. His last 4 years at McLaren aren't really good to compare because McLaren had a pretty dreadful 4 years. You can't really compare F1 to his Indy 500 starts, but he has some very impressive results in some endurance racing, which leads me to believe he'll probably be fine. Ocon, I think, is a driver that a lot of people underrate. He got beat pretty handedly by Daniel, but it's Daniel, and he had the year off. And I don't think he was ever really too far off of him. It was never anything like a Max situation with Gasly or Albon. I think that he kept close enough so that it's not. I don't think he was really I don't think he was ever in danger of being replaced, personally. And I want to see if Alpine continues its upward trajectory. 2018 was a good year for them. They stagnated in 2019, and then they had another great year in 2020. So who's to say? They have a decent power unit in there. But I think of a lot of where they land on the table depends on what Ferrari brings to the table, which of course we're going to talk about right now. I'm not expecting to see a year like last year. From what I've been hearing, the Ferrari engine was a one-off thing for 2020. I don't think it's going to be as good as it was in 2019, but I think we're going to see that get better, which of course will rise the tide for Haas and Alfa Romeo. I think the Leclerc and the Sainz pairing is going to be a fruitful relationship. I think that Sainz is going to do better than Vettel did last year. Not because the car is better, but I think Sainz is going to fit the team better. I think that, like I said before, that I think the big reason that Vettel had the issues last year was just because of all the turmoil going on with the team. Sainz gets the benefit of being fresh into this. But and it's like, what is it? Fresh meat. I think that it seems like everybody that gets into Ferrari is like, really excited before they get the life sucked out of them. It certainly seems like Ferrari's putting in the effort, though. I think that they're trying to step up their social media game with having somebody like Sainz. And Sainz is, he's a very fun guy, as we saw with him and Lando at McLaren. And I think it's wise for Ferrari to do that, to keep fans and get younger fans and get new fans. Otherwise, they just seem very, just stuck in the past I don't think that's the direction that the sport is moving in, with being, focused on being elite and fancy. I think Ferrari's always going to have that prestige about them. Ferraris just in general do. But, a lot of these teams have great social media presences. They have great driver personalities. They have, just great engagement. And I expect to see more of that from Ferrari. I think that Leclerc is going to do better than Sainz. He's going to beat out Sainz. He's a better driver than Sainz. I don't think it's too surprising for anybody to hear that. I'm hoping that Ferrari is not going to be nearly as incompetent as they were last year, but who knows? It was embarrassing. But I'm not sure if anything is actually going to change. I don't think I've heard of anything that about that too much. I think Mattia Binotto is still the team principal, but who knows how many issues actually laid with him. All right, so AlphaTauri. I'm really excited for this team next year. I really am. I hope that Gasly can continue his upward trajectory and keep the momentum going from last year. And I hope that keeps going through to 2022. Red Bull has treated him like trash. I think he deserves better. They gave way more leeway to Albon. Way more. And maybe some of that reason is because of Gasly. And they saw all of the mistakes that they made with Gasly and wanted to do better. Maybe. But still, they gave way more leeway to Albon. And Gasly had a pretty fantastic year last year, and he was pretty outspoken about being confused as to not being considered for the second Red Bull seat. And I don't exactly remember what Red Bull, their response being, but basically they were saying that he doesn't know what he's talking about, and it just seemed pretty shitty. We'll see. I think that he might. The rumor that I've seen the most is that Alpine want to sign him on. A great lead French driver on a French team works out great. They do have Ocon on that team, and they currently have Fernando Alonso. I don't know if they're going to just do Fernando for 1 year or they're going to boot Ocon one more time to get Gasly in there, but Gasly's a race winner. He can play with that in his contract. Yes, he won by luck, but who hasn't won by luck at this point? Anybody who's not on the Mercedes team. And the other half of AlphaTauri, Yuki. I am so excited to see this man race. Apparently, he's a beast behind the wheel, and he's done fantastic in every series he's been in. And he's an exciting driver to watch. I don't really watch F2, but I've heard quite a few people saying that he would have won if not for the bad luck that he had. Apparently, Helmut Marko has been pretty keen on promoting Yuki. So I hope they don't rush him to the seat like they did for Albon or Gasly. But people are saying that Yuki, he's just built different. The last thing we need, though, is another name in the Red Bull pool of dreams, pool of dead dreams. That wouldn't be a good look, but I wouldn't put it past them. Keeping it Alpha here, let's talk a little bit about Alfa Romeo. They're a bit of a anonymous team. Really, honestly, especially last year, they didn't really do much. There was that great drive from Kimi. I forgot which race it was, but he got up to he got up there. I wanted to say it was 7th place, but I think he was even further up from there. Unfortunately, the Alfa Romeo is a dog shit car, and he got pushed back. to where that car belonged, unfortunately. But yeah, that was really cool. And also Giovannazi passing everybody on the first lap. I think he had the record for the most people pass on the first lap, which is it's easy to overlook, but you got to think about how crazy that is. The first lap in an F1 race, everybody's bunched up. The braking points, I think, are a bit more of a crapshoot. These cars are delicate as hell. And one little rub will end your race. And I don't know. I think it's pretty commendable. I have a real soft spot for Antonio Giovannazi because he seems to be the most overlooked driver on the grid. A lot of people don't know anything about him other than he looks like Italian Jesus. I think he's a good talent, and I like the fact that he came up from more humble beginnings and pretty late. So it's a success story if I've ever seen one. From what I've heard, he was a massive asset to Ferrari when it came to giving feedback in the simulators. I think it's part of the reason that he still got that seat in Alfa Romeo. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that he's the only Italian on the grid. I think that if that was the biggest thing, that he would have moved him to Ferrari rather than Sainz. I know he's not as good as Sainz, but I don't know. I think that the question when it comes to Alfa Romeo most of the time is, okay, when is Kimi retiring? He pretty famously said in last year's Drive to Survive that is just a hobby for him, and when it stops being fun, he'll stop. So when does it stop being fun? That was a pretty terrible Kimi impression. It's just a hobby for me. When it stops being fun, I will stop. I don't know if that's good. I think it's the best I've done. I've never tried it before. But when does it stop being fun for him? He had a pretty terrible car last year. So what is he looking for? I don't really know. Is he waiting for those 2022 regs? Or I don't know. I don't think that driving an F1 car ever stops being fun. I'd imagine, but then again, for a former world champion, driving on the back of the grid maybe isn't the best time, but I don't know. He's still having a good time. I think that when Alfa Romeo does move from the pairing that we have, it's Gio that's going to be staying and Kimi who will be moving on. I don't know if a lot of people agree with me that that's a good idea, but I don't know. Kimi's got to retire at some point. I don't think it's a good idea to pull a Haas and pull both these guys and get two rookies in those seats. It's a horrible idea, and we'll talk about that in a bit. A prediction is that Schwartzman will be coming to F1. He's another Ferrari junior. But of course, that's pretty dependent on how he does in F2. I don't know how many points he needs, if he needs to win it or whatever he needs to do, or if he has enough super license points already to be in F1. But it's a pretty stacked field in F2 this year, so he's gonna have to fight for it. But it's interesting to say the least. A lot of people were surprised that Gio was staying, including myself. I'm not gonna lie. I think that if they were going to get rid of him, I thought they were going to do it this year and have Eilert or Schumacher in that seat. Yeah, it's interesting to see how they'll do this year with a supposedly upgraded engine. Like I said, I've got a soft spot for Gio. I want him to do well. That'd be cool, seeing a Gio podium or something like that. And people are like, what the fuck? Italian Jesus, walking the water of the grid. So Haas. Out of all the teams, I think that Haas is the worst off out of everyone, and I don't think that I don't think that's really a hot take. I think a lot of people agree with me here. Yes, Williams is still down in the dumps. They're still Williams. We're probably not going to see anything too different from them this year, but at least they had someone who bought the team who are very much interested in getting back to winning form. And they respect the sport at least enough to keep the Williams name for now on the team. I don't know if that's ever going to change. We'll see if, they'll ever get a big sponsor, but there's only 2 sponsors on that car this year. So hopefully they gain more. It's hard. I know it's hard to get sponsors when you've been finishing dead last every year without points. But anyway, we're talking about Haas. Haas also only has 2 sponsors. So same boat, same difference. And I know that Magnussen had sponsors and Grosjean leaving. Your 2 veteran drivers leaving. That can't be a good look. And I don't think anybody wants to really support the team after that. I think that Magnussen and Grosjean really flattered this car. I do. I think that we're really going to see what Haas is about, having 2 rookies in those seats. And we'll see. But then again, the Ferrari engine is going to be better. But I still think that they're going to be pretty bad. I'm hoping the best for Mick Schumacher, but as history has shown, he needs some ramping up before he gets up to pace. I don't expect him to be quick out the gate. I really don't. Mazepin's a decent driver. I don't know if he's really ever won any series, but he's a known hothead. I'm not expecting to see good things from him. I really don't understand why they didn't keep a veteran driver or bring one in and bring in, if we wanted to get rid of both those guys, or, at least sign on Hulk as a backup driver or somebody. I don't know. I don't. Their backup driver is Pietro Fittipaldi, who was another. He's not even. I wouldn't even say he's a rookie. He's never driven the full season of F1. But Haas is definitely 1 foot out the door. Like I said, I think that they're done with F1 after this year. They're going to sell that team to Mazepin, and that'll be the end of it. But if we're losing Haas, the only American the American F1 team, Comrade. At least we'll still have 20 teams. 20 cars on the grid. We want more. We want more teams in the sport, not less. So, if we have to have whatever they're going to rename the team to, Mazepin Motorsports, then so be it, I guess. And finally, that brings us to Williams. I'm going to go ahead and give my age-old prediction, everybody's age-old prediction, and say that they're going to score a point this year. Let's go for it. Let's get real hot takey here and say that they're both going to score points. Latifi's not bad, man. I think that he's a little anonymous too. He's got the Giovannazi symptoms, but and Russell's way better at qualifying than he is, for sure. But he's never really off pace off of Russell during the race too much. He's really not that bad. He gets flack. He spins probably every practice, but I think he's a good driver. I think he holds his own. Let's say that. He's probably in the lower tier of drivers who are on the grid right now, but he's really not that bad. And he had a couple of 11th place finishes. If you look at, Russell versus Latifi last year, it's not like Russell stomped him out. Russell, I love him, but he is simultaneously the most underrated and overrated driver on the grid. There's my hot take. Russell, he's absolutely shown he's got talent. He's murdered every series he's been in. But he's made some really freaking stupid mistakes in that Williams, and that has kept him from scoring points. He really has. And his drive in Mercedes shows he really got quality to him, but I talked a little bit about it last episodes, but him passing Bottas wasn't that great. He was on old hards. He was on fresh tires. Bottas was on old hards. Russell was on fresh tires, and everybody's like, well, he's really shown his quality against Bottas. He's really shown him who's boss. And yeah, sure. I think he's a better driver than Bottas, for sure. And I definitely think he has way more potential than him. But I think that Bottas is a lower risk for a more consistent result. And Russell, not that much more risk. He's a little bit more risk, but he's a lot higher reward. But like I said, he made some really stupid mistakes in that Williams. And I think he has the potential to be an elite driver. The problem that I have is there's a lot of British fans who love this kid, and they're already saying, oh yeah, he's right up there with Leclerc, Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo. And I'm like, I'm sorry, there's nothing pointing towards him being at that level at this point. It's hard to judge because he is in the shittiest car at the grid, for sure. But there's nothing that I see from him that's like, yes, he is absolutely at this level already. He is better, and he's got better racecraft than, the rest of the grid. He's in this. There's nothing that's really shown me that. There's a lot that's shown me he's got the potential. And he probably will get to that point someday. Who knows? F1's a crazy sport. But I don't know. I do like Russell a lot. And, I don't have a lot of friends that do watch Formula One, but, in the conversations that I have had before this Mercedes drive, I would say, dude, keep an eye out for Russell, man. He's a great driver. But he's got the Aston Martin hype train. Put that kid in British racing green, and that man is going to be unstoppable. Nobody's going to want to talk shit about him. But yeah, that's all I have for my overview of the teams this upcoming year. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. I think this one went way better than the first one. I'm really happy with this. Feel free to subscribe, follow, like, share for more F1 coverage. We'll see what we'll talk about next. Drive to Survive is coming out soon. Ferrari's Livery is coming soon. Practicing is going to start soon. And actually, in just a few weeks here, we're going to get our first race. So, really excited about that. Really excited for you to have joined me. Thank you so much.